I thought I would just give you a quick sneak peek of what is going to be our new living room. I'm just giving it a bit of a hoover because there are a lot of dead wood lice in here, which is a bit grim. I am actually going to set up a separate account. I know I'm so basic, but I am going to set up a separate home account because it is a project, and it's a project that is probably going to take a very long time, like 5 to 8 years. So I really want to be able to document, even for myself and James, like how far we... Happy New Year and welcome to the Bluestone Villa. Today's video is a 2021 renovation plans video. So I'll be talking you through month by month, renovation project by renovation project, exactly what we want to tackle here in our Victorian house. I'll also be giving you a bit of a brief glimpse of some of the befores of those projects as well, so that you can see why we want to do them, what we're working with, and ultimately where we hope to end up at the end of the year. Before I share that with you though, I thought it'd be really helpful to have a bit of a catch up and a bit of a recap on kind of our history with this house, what our kind of long-term renovation goals are, and also what we've achieved to date. So if you're new here, hi, my name's Louisa. I live here in this semi-detached Victorian house with my boyfriend James. We completed on this house at the end of March 2019, and we've been working on it pretty much ever since. It is a fixer-upper. There are definitely worse fixer-uppers on the internet, but nonetheless, when we purchased it, it was a little bit sad, a little bit bleak, and a little bit unloved. The previous owners actually owned this property for 25 years before selling it to us, but the last 8 years or so they actually lived abroad and so were renting the house out. So as you can imagine, there were lots of different families kind of coming and going across that period of time. I think you also see a lot on kind of Instagram of people that really make their rental properties their home, and what I would say is I don't really feel that anybody particularly did that here. I should also add that the last 15 to 16 months before we completed on the property, the house was actually empty. So whilst they were trying to sell it, they didn't have any renters here, so obviously it was very cold. The garden became completely overgrown, and of course across that time the property will have probably deteriorated a little bit as well, just because there was nobody here kind of caring for it. So obviously because it was a rental, it was magnolia pretty much everywhere, but it looked really kind of dirty. It showed up every kind of mark and scuff and like little crack in the plaster. There was brown carpet throughout, delightful. Some very unpleasant smells. The kitchen and the bathroom were definitely the worst rooms in the house. The bathroom actually still is as it was when we purchased it, but the kitchen we have worked on. And I think those two rooms are kind of the two main rooms that really help determine a property's value, and the kitchen in particular was just a horror. Again, I'm sure there is a worse fixer-upper kitchen on the internet, but it just wasn't particularly nice. It was the only room with any colour in, and it was green, which actually we've got a green dining room now, so we do really like that colour, but it just didn't really look nice in this kitchen. The kitchen was really cheap. It was probably at least 20 years old, I reckon. It was very cold out here. Oh yeah, out here, I'm actually in the kitchen. Oh, I only just picked up on that. It's much nicer now. You can't really see it properly, but nonetheless, yeah, it was just horrible. It was really dirty, or it was disgusting. I didn't really want to cook in there, to be honest. It was the first thing that we tackled. But yeah, so those two rooms were not great. The bathroom is still not great. It's totally livable for us, but it's one of those things that you kind of do wonder, like, as a rental, like, how did it command any kind of money? Because it's a decent sized family home, and actually the property next door to us, the year before they sold it, they actually rented theirs out as well. And knowing what they were asking for rental, like I can't imagine that this house was commanding a similar value, and I'm sure that probably played into the role of why the previous owners probably ended up selling it on at that point as well. But I digress. The day we moved in as well, here's a cool little story for you. There were thousands, and I'm not exaggerating, thousands of dead wood lice just around all of the rooms on the ground floor. Thankfully, I took a Hoover with me on the day that I collected the keys, but it was disgusting. I was really grossed out by it and also really horrified. Like that moment where you suddenly think, is there something wrong with this house? Why do I have all these wood lice in my house? Thankfully, once we cleaned them up, we've actually never experienced that phenomenon again. Yeah, so that was kind of the state it was in. As I said, definitely worse fixer-uppers on the internet, but it wasn't the greatest. In terms of kind of our long-term renovation goals, we've phased our renovation into 3 phases. So phase 1 and phase 2, we're really committed to, we're absolutely going to do, and of course we've already started those. Phase 3 is more of a TBC phase and will be totally dependent on how long we end up staying in this house. Phase 2 of a renovation, I just want to kind of start there a little bit, because I think most kind of seasoned renovators or property experts would probably tell you to do our phase 2 first, because it is kind of building work. It's not structural to the existing house, but it is an extension, etc., and it will impact some things. And so, as I said, I think most kind of property experts and seasoned renovators would tell you to buy a property that you can afford, and still means you have a pot of money to be able to do that kind of project first, before then you go and work on the rest of the house. But we haven't done that, and we haven't chosen to do it that way around, and it is quite a strategic decision that we've made. Essentially, this house is kind of a dream house for us at this stage in our lives, and it's in an ideal location. We actually don't really feel like we've had to compromise on anything. The only thing that I think we really have kind of compromised on is a garage. That's something that James would have really liked, but not possible, and quite typical for the fact that we bought in the middle of a town. So yeah, so it's dream property, dream location, no compromises. We had already kind of determined quite early on in our house buying process and kind of viewing different properties that we were probably going to end up with a fixer-upper, and it was actually something we were a little bit excited about as well. So that wasn't even a compromise, and it just made so much sense for us to put all of our money and kind of really go to the top end of our budget to buy this house, because it will be a much longer term house for us than what we were looking at previously. It's obviously a dream to be able to live here. We didn't have anything that needed like dangerous, imminent, immediate attention, like, you know, the roof wasn't falling in or anything like that. You know, we could afford to just live here and not do anything if we didn't want to. It wouldn't have been as nice, but we could have done that. So that's kind of why we're doing our phase 1 before our phase 2, because actually we need to save the pot of money to be able to do the phase 2. And equally, because we want to do that phase 2 right, we want to do it kind of high spec, high end. We want to put kind of a lot of thought into it. In fact, being in the house and living here and the practicalities of living here has actually really helped us refine that process more, and I think that will only continue, especially once we start speaking to an architect, etc., further down the line. But yeah, so basically we just didn't want to live in the house the way it was for 3 to 4 years whilst we saved to do the building work. So we're doing phase 1 first, which is basically righting any wrongs, rectifying anything, you know, better insulating, restoring period features, bringing things up to spec, decorating, injecting some colour, some life, some love, making this our home, making it cozy, comfortable, like it feels like it's ours, so that we can enjoy it, and also we can enjoy having people here and not feeling embarrassed about it as well. It's one thing to do that for a year, but to do that for 3, 4, 5 years, by the way, I know there are people that probably do that, but that's just, you know yourself sometimes, and that was kind of our decision that we took. So yeah, so we're doing phase 1 first, which is all of those things that I've just touched on. And then phase 3 of the renovation is TBC, because it will really depend how long we end up living here. So we didn't buy this as our forever home. We bought it as a long-term home, perhaps even up for like 20 years. I think the longer we live here and the longer we think about the fact that we might be able to do certain things at this house, I think the more it becomes a reality that it could be a forever home, but never say never. So who knows? I think we definitely have aspirations to upgrade again at some point. As I said, no time soon. But I do walk around. Some of the roads around here are epic and the houses are amazing. And I'm that weird person that's like peering in people's windows as I walk past, and I'm just like, I want that one. And I want that one. So yeah, watch this space on that, not for a while. But basically, I think if we're still planning to stay here for longer than 10 years, then phase 3 will definitely happen, which is basically doing this kitchen again. I can't really say properly, because it wasn't that we didn't do it properly the first time, but we did it on a budget this time because we needed to get it done. The anticipation would be hopefully to extend it out perhaps to the rest of the house line so that it makes it a bigger space, kind of add in lots of glass, add in an island or whatever's trendy at that point, I guess, and put in a more kind of luxurious high-end kitchen. But yeah, so that's why that's a TBC, because it just totally depends on how long we end up living here. In terms of what we have achieved so far, so we worked initially on the ground floor. Again, seasoned renovators, property experts would tell you to work top down so that you don't kind of end up having to redo any of the work that you've done. But again, strategically, we wanted to work ground floor up because ground floor is the space that you spend the most time in. It's where you really live, and it's the practicalities of things like cooking and just, you know, sitting in the living room and relaxing and having guests over. I mean, come on guys. The Victorians didn't make the ground floor more ornate for just themselves. They did it because they wanted to impress their guests, and I want to impress my guests with a non-brown carpet, non-magnolia wall, non-smelly mess. So yeah, so we started with the ground floor. There have been moments last year where I've had to not redo whole things, but have had to tweak a few things or do some snagging because we've kind of ended up knocking stuff, etc., when we've done other work. But it's a small price to pay ultimately for us to be able to enjoy the space. So yeah, from the end of March 2019 to basically the end of 2019, we worked on the ground floor. Now there are still jobs to do down here in every single room. I'll give you a bit of an example. In our living room, we've got 2 alcoves next to our fireplace. They actually have some shelving in there already, and one of them actually has a cupboard as well, but they're not particularly smart. They look pretty cheap and they're probably pretty old as well, but not Victorian old, like I'm talking like, I don't know, 70s, 80s old or something. And yeah, they're not really particularly nice. You see a lot of stuff now from joiners that's, you know, beautiful kind of cupboards that are a bit more ornate with then the shelving above it, and that's kind of more what we want. That kind of thing costs close to £2,000, and because we want to move through this house relatively quickly and make it as comfortable as possible to live in, certain projects like that that are a kind of a nice to have rather than a necessary are kind of left to go back to, which again maybe is a little bit back to front, maybe a little bit upside down, I don't know. I get really envious when I see people on Instagram and they've done the whole room and everything is done and it's all furnished and it just looks beautiful. But truth be told, I would rather have our bedroom finished so that we can go and sleep in there and enjoy that space rather than having the alcove covered straight away, as an example. So yeah, we've got a couple of jobs like that we'll come back to as time goes on, I guess. And then last year, we actually managed to achieve quite a lot last year, which even we were quite surprised about. It felt very slow moving at times, particularly in the first lockdown. But we sat at the end of last year over Christmas. It also feels really weird to say that because that was literally like last week. But yeah, we sat over Christmas and we're like, actually, we've achieved really quite a lot in this house, and I think it helps when you suddenly finish something, because you spend so long in kind of the prep, the dirty, the messy, the kind of building site time, that it just feels like it's going on forever and like you're treading water and you can't quite move through it and like you're not achieving anything. And then one day all of a sudden you get to all the fun bits and it happens like that, and
yeah, you're just completely blown away by what you've achieved and how different it looks from the beginning, and you're like, wow, look what we've done. And that's hilarious, because we spent most of last year being like, we have not achieved anything, and then at the end of the year we were like, look what we've done. So last year we did our master bedroom, which we completed just before Christmas. I'm really excited to share next week a transformation tour with you. The room is unfurnished still and may stay unfurnished for a little bit longer, but it's such a different space. I can't wait to share like the before with you again, and also talk through everything, like what we spent, where we got things, all of that good stuff. James also started a project just before Christmas, which was our office slash spare bedroom on the top floor, and he's actually also already practically finished it. There's some last final bits that are going to happen this year, which I'll get onto in a minute, but yeah, it's a totally different space and it feels like a really kind of cozy, snug. So again, really excited to share that. James built a patio. I mean, what? And we stripped and repainted stairs, which, yeah, if you saw that renovation diary, it still hurts my soul, but nonetheless, it looks better now. So let's get into our 2021 renovation plans. So I'm going to work through it month by month, and as I said, I'll also share some kind of footage of some of those projects before. But January is just going to be a bit of a snagging and finishing touches month for both James and I. So as I said, James has been working really hard just before Christmas on the office bedroom on the top floor. He has pretty much finished it. He only needs to build a bookcase. So if you saw on some previous videos, I will have mentioned that on the wall that the door to enter the room is on, James is going to build a bookcase to go all the way across that wall. Again, kind of adding to that kind of snug study library feel, and yeah, it should be super cozy. So he's going to be doing that in January. I've got some snagging and finishing touches to do on kind of like the stairs and the landings. I've got some of the furnishing pieces for those spaces as well, but I still need to kind of get some others. I need to upcycle a piece of furniture for there, so I'm kind of going to be doing all of that, and I'll share some of that with you guys as well. Then February and March, I think, will be our first kind of new project of the year, which is our understairs cupboard. Now, that might sound like quite a low-key project, and I suppose it is in some ways. I'm not sure if I have shared this on this channel. I have on my Instagram, but basically I actually lost my job towards the end of last year, like so many people in 2020, because of the C word. And so obviously financially we don't have as much money as usual, so we have to be a little bit careful about what we're doing at this first half of the year. And also kind of the following months from February and March, we've kind of penciled in for the time being a much bigger project that does require kind of a hefty wallet of cash to do. So we just want to make sure that we have the money to do that. So yeah, so February and March will be the understairs cupboard, but to be honest, I've been dying to do it for ages. It is a mess. It still has the weird funky smell that we had when we first moved here, and in general it's been a real dumping zone. We put like a lot of our tools in there and all sorts, and just, yeah, it needs sorting out, and I've got some lovely ideas for it, and we just really need the space because it's not practical otherwise, our hallway. So we've got quite a small hallway, and I'm not whinging about that, but it just is a relatively small hallway, and I don't want to kind of clutter it up with loads of coats and shoes and stuff just because there isn't really space to put it, and I don't want that to be like what you're greeted with every time you come downstairs or every time you come in the house. So we need somewhere to put things nicely for us, for our guests, and also I want to kind of include some way to kind of have a seating area in there so you can kind of put shoes on and take them off in there, because again, there isn't really anywhere to be able to do that in the hallway apart from sitting on the stairs, which isn't always kind of comfortable or easy to do. So yeah, that's kind of like our motivations behind that. And then the reason it's going on inwards to March as well is because there are certain elements within the hallway that we would love to finish off as well. I think you look at our hallway and you wouldn't know that it's not finished, but there just are a few little bits and pieces we want to do. So we need to put a radiator cover over the radiator in that hallway. We didn't change that radiator to a cast iron like the rest of the house because again, there isn't really the space. Equally, it's also a really tall radiator, so any kind of off-the-shelf radiator covers don't fit. And I had been looking at a bespoke one, but it was just coming up as like £300 or more. And James now has kind of built up the skills and the tool set to be able to create something like that himself. So we are going to try and do that ourselves, which is exciting. I want to get kind of a mirror for that space above the radiator cover, and then we also want down the stairs kind of a really bright, fun, meaningful gallery wall. I've already collected some of the prints that we would probably want to put up there, but I'll definitely collect more over time. And we just haven't put it up yet because it's just been one of those things. It's not been the biggest of priorities in comparison to everything else, but I think we'll start mapping that out and putting some of those up as well. So like not huge thing, yeah, so nothing too major in the hallway, just a few like odds and ends. I need to paint like the ceiling rows, stuff like that. So that's February and March. And then April, May is where we move on to the big, expensive, exciting project, which is the exterior of the property. So this is something we actually looked into doing last year and it just didn't work out timing wise, but essentially we want to have the front of the house re-rendered and then obviously everything repainted. Now initially we were planning to do this when we do our phase 2 works because that would make sense, but the reason why we want to redo it is because the render is probably about 140 years old and it's really patchy where it's been patched up before. It looks really tired and scruffy, and there are a number of cracks in it from across the years as well, which means that water can get into the brickwork, which is obviously something we don't want. So whereas before we were kind of going to hold out, the more we've lived here, the more we think it's something we would like to get resolved so that it doesn't cause kind of too much damage. So we're going to have that redone. Again, we thought maybe it would be a case of it would be skimmed or patched or something, but we think the best way to do it and kind of the way to kind of make sure it's the best job possible is to have all of the render taken off only on the front of the property because that's where the wear and tear is the worst. The rest of the house is kind of okay. But yeah, have all of that front render taken off and then have our plasterer re-render it. And then we'll have the whole house painted. So that will be pretty exciting because it's going to be really transformative for the outside of our house. We definitely feel like the tattiest house on the street, and yeah, it's just in sunlight it doesn't look too bad, but on days like today, for example, where it's pretty grey and sad, the house looks pretty grey and sad. In terms of colouring, we're going to keep it kind of a bluey colour, we think. We actually like the colour that we have the house at the moment, but we think it would look pretty cool if it was a little bit punchier. So I think we're going to go for a slightly bolder blue colour of some kind, but we're still TBC on what exactly. And then across the summer months, I'm not too sure exactly how that will take shape. I really want us to have a bit of kind of a renovation break across that time. We've worked through all year the last 2 years, and I think it would be nice to actually be able to kind of enjoy some of the garden this year. Obviously James built that patio in 2020 and we didn't even get to use it that much in the end because we were working so hard on the house. So I think it would just be really nice to be able to enjoy the space more. Hopefully by that point we'll be able to have a few people over now and again, so it would be lovely to entertain here properly. And yeah, just do bits and pieces in the garden because the garden is an ongoing project for us as well. As I said, when we moved here it was really overgrown, so we've kind of been trying to rectify that over time and kind of improve it every year. So I think that would be a really good opportunity to do that then this year. Equally, obviously James did build that patio last year. He feels pretty confident with doing stuff like that now, and we do have a patio off the back of our house that is pretty old. It's cracked in a few places, it's not particularly nice slabs, and so we possibly may change that over across that time as well. Another possible project for that summer period is James would really like to have the drive done, which obviously goes hand in hand with the exterior of the property. However, he has like some pretty solid plans and ideas of what he would like that to be. And again, it's not kind of a cheap kind of DIY job. And so I really want that for our house, for it to look the absolute best it can be, but also for James, who that's something that he's been working on and really likes the idea of. So if we're able to, if kind of obviously my job situation changes quickly enough and we're able to kind of financially afford that, I think the drive will be something else that we'll probably look to try and do this year. But if not, I think it will definitely be top of the list for next year. And then in the autumn, one of our final projects of the year will be our top floor bedroom, which is kind of going to be our main spare bedroom. It's where James and I are sleeping at the moment. And I think that's going to be a project that I take on myself a little bit, for good or bad, after we saw the stripping stairs incident. But the reason I want to take it on is, A, it's not a hugely difficult job up there. It is really mostly just decorating, but I really want to open up the fireplace. So we've obviously got fireplaces in basically every room in this house, and the living room and the dining room have always been open, and here we couldn't open the one up in our bedroom, or what will be our bedroom, that we were working on last year. James doesn't want to open up the one in his office because of furniture and bits and pieces that he has up there. The second bedroom we're not working on until we probably do kind of our bigger building work, because that will impact that room. And so I'm left with just that bedroom up on the top floor, and I wanted to open up all the fireplaces initially, so the fact that I've opened up none is horrendous. So yeah, that's my plan for that, much to James's distress. He does not want to do it. He thinks it's a bad idea, he doesn't want to do it, he just sees stress, and so I've told him I'm going to do it myself, and worst case scenario, I wrote my dad in to help me. But yeah, I really want to open it up. I'm hoping there might be a fireplace behind it, but if there's not, we'll just purchase one. We've done that before with my bedroom at my parents' house, and also one of the bedrooms at mine and my sister's house, so it is easy enough to do, and I am always keeping my eye out, but I kind of need to knock through the wall first to actually determine whether there's something there. So yeah, fingers crossed, guys. So yeah, I think that's it. 2021. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it will be a lot. Everything always takes longer than anticipated at the beginning. In terms of anything else, I think anything else is a bit like the drive situation. It's kind of a bit of a TBC. Some things might be done. We would quite like to get those alcove cupboards done that I mentioned earlier in the video. Our dining room, we need to furnish that a little bit more. We've got our dining room table but not our chairs, and it kind of just is like a table in the middle of quite an empty room. Or we then dump a load of stuff in there as a bit of a dumping ground. So I definitely want to kind of tidy that up and start furnishing that. But yeah, all money dependent. So yeah, that's our plans for 2021. Obviously, I will take you guys along with me, and I'll also be sharing a bunch of other bits and pieces in terms of home content. But whether you're new here today or you've been following for a while, I would love to hear from you below to let me know kind of if there's anything in particular this year you would like to see. I've kind of begun to plan out my content for the next few months, but I obviously would love to hear what you're interested in. Is there kind of bits and pieces that we've shared around the renovation that you would like more detail on? Are there videos that you particularly like on my channel that you would like me to do more of? I would just love to hear from you below so that I can help kind of curate that content further for you guys. But yeah, otherwise, I hope you all have a great day. This is the second time I've filmed this video because I've got a new camera, and the strap was in the focus, so I was like blurry the whole first time, and I'm not feeling my best now because I've been out for a walk today and I've got absolutely rained on. But yeah, I hope you guys are all great. I look forward to seeing you next time we have a room transformation tour of our master bedroom, which I'm so excited to show you. So thanks for watching, and see you next time.